The elder approached me from behind and projecting, feelings of gratefulness and said, "We are done, and we are happy you did this for us. What would you like from us? Where would you like to go?" I said, "I want to see where you live, how you live." She puts up her hand like this. She's like, puts up her hand and says, "We live on Venus." "You live on Venus?" I was totally startled. It made no sense. We went back the way we came to the transporter. Arriving on the original level, I could sense she was communicating with someone else telepathically as we were walking. I was absolutely exhilarated that I was now seeing so much of their life. We ended up at the large hangar bay in which we came in, where we met a young adult humanoid that was similar in age to me. He looked human, yet something about him seemed alien, or a part of that world, and not from Earth. He was my height and had straight, short, brown hair with a part down the side, and he was smiling at me and very warm and friendly. The elder asked him, "Do you want to show him where we live?" He said, "Yes," telepathically. He was very enthusiastic. Yes. His open heartedness made this fellow an instant friend. So there was this he was exuding a lot of warmth and friendliness, and very cheery too, very friendly and cheery. So we left. That was it. Instantaneous friend. We left the elder and went into the hangar. And so last time I was here, I was too emotional to get a good look. But now I observed in detail a massive field of disc shaped crafts in rows, just way too many to count. I saw spherical pods, pure black craft with wings, kind of in an X shape, but like it wasn't. It's like a weird diamond, like crossing diamonds. I don't even know. Large tubes with nose cones, and yeah, it felt to me that these were the crafts for the beings who worked in this large base. I was looking up at the space as well too, staring up in awe at the size of it because it was huge. It was a fantastic space, and it could have been 200 feet high. We walked to a disc-shaped craft with a landing door open, and he walked in ahead of me, and he said cheerfully, "We're going to our home planet. Get in." It was all because I'm basically spending energy trying to look around at things, and he's trying to tell me to come in. I get in the disc, very excited, and I sat down on one of the seats inside the craft when he says, "No, you're going to drive." And I'm pretty certain I laughed out loud, and I'm like, "What?" Though I don't know if I framed it like that, but I was like, "What?" And I just was finding the experience very amazing. So I just briefly want to talk about the state I'm in here, just to compare the different states. So first, there's the 20-year-old everyday waking me. Then there's the me that knows them, the guy on the beach who realizes he's having contact. Then there's the guy I became in this space base, who is the hybrid between the oversoul embodied and the 20-year-old mind. Now, at this point in the story, I'm even further altered. I'm closer to the ecstatic state of the White Room. The spinning of the orb, the freedom, joyful, childlike, and confident. So every time I talk about this contact event and going explicitly and going to Venus, I'm speaking as if I'm overjoyed, like a little kid. But I'm not convinced I'm expressing that in the moment. I'm in that state. I'm in this like high energy joy state, like this, like I'm feeling like this on the inside. But it's being retained in the environment, or as I'm talking, or as I'm walking or interacting in the environment. But when I tell the public, I can't help but be overjoyed. It's like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I'm feeling that, but I'm not in this little kid state in front of them. And it is in this state that I become the most embodied of the White Rune. So there is a really strange sense here of like a real fulfillment of the embodiment of the White Rune that I'll ever be, by the way. And it, like that I'll ever be on craft with them. I consider this the fulfillment of the Deva state, and it could be said that it could be called that. A 20-year-old merged with the higher self, and there might be something going on here with the presence of this open-hearted humanoid with me, a pure soul who is an adolescent, and I have a social relational effect, like a mirror effect off of him. So then I'm having a social part of my mind that says, oh, this is how I behave, or this is how I handle that energy. And to add to this amazing state is I know a connection is being made to the desire to follow that intuition to go to Hornby Island with just my backpack. The traveling adventure. Remember, I had a vision to fulfill this, right? An intuition, only to have an out of this world traveling adventure when I go to Hornby Island, right? The feeling is linked, like they're purposefully fulfilling that intuition. This free spirit traveling from place to place, having a backpack and having an adventure, but now I'm really having an adventure. So now I'm like going to Venus, right? So it's all meant to align with the backpack story. So he takes control and he says, okay, let me get out of here first. He puts his hands flat on that panel. So this panel here, and visible from the screen, the craft floats up and begins to hover. And there was not a single sensation of G-force inside to indicate at all that we were moving. It was as if we were in a stationary room, only watching movement on a TV screen. Then suddenly we zipped out, just like that. Boom. We zipped out into the black of space so fast that I didn't even see a bay door open, appearing to have gone through the wall. He then let go of the controls and set me up to take over. So he told me to place my hands on the pad, right? So place my hands on this pad here, and which was a metallic chrome looking square with a raised lip around the edges, a mold for a humanoid hand with 4 fingers and a thumb, and it was angled towards me. So it was like this, basically like that, like kind of like this. And it was on a long bar, kind of like a long bar like that. And off to my right were other controls. So there were controls over here, like red buttons and such. Now, here's a tiny correction after analyzing all the dialogue. Very small stuff, but I really like to make things as accurate as possible. I reported, he says, you control it with your thought, but I now think it's better translated as you move it with your thought. So when I put my hands on the pad, there was a sensation that my awareness now extended out to the whole craft. In the craft, my astral body feels like it is hollow, like I don't have a physical tissue body with me, like it is like what I am at that moment is a shell, a hologram of awareness projected. So then I thought for a second, where's Venus? As I'm trying to orientate myself, he said that large bright object at the corner of the screen. So basically that thing there. I was able to turn the craft with a simple impulse or intention. So it was kind of a natural, intuitive feeling of being able to move the craft, and it was not a forced feeling. And I pointed it at that Venus, that light, and the sun came into view on the screen, and a filter was automatically over top of the sun, muting its brightness to a dim orange. He encouraged me to aim it at a spot in empty space somewhere, a quarter of the way in between Venus and Earth, and I threw it forward. The craft arriving at the location, like I basically just did it. Like you just, it's impulse. It's basically what it is, telepathic impulse. The craft arriving at the location I was looking at within a second. And a second isn't even the right word. Traveling at lightning speed, basically. I simply turned and aimed it at another spot and kept doing that in the vastness of space. So I repeated this several times, what I estimate to be about 4 times. So kind of something like that. Boom, 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 boom. Until Venus was the size of a basketball on the screen. And it was very fast form of travel through space. And it seemed like it would have instantaneously gotten us to Venus if it wasn't for my stop and starts along the way. From our angle, Venus was crescent shaped. And I was stunned, absolutely stunned, to be witnessing another planet in our solar system with my own eyes. The milky, cloudy atmosphere was mainly white with some dirty brown. But I was uncomfortable flying the craft in any type of controlled environment or like where you had to be controlled. So he took over as I didn't want to fly into something. He was immediately more controlled as he descended the craft now into Venus, the brighter side, basically flying into the crescent, or the bright side of the crescent. And as we came closer and closer, the clouds, basically white clouds, took over the screen, and then kind of a muted orange took over the screen. And as we exited the haze, I could now see we were in a hellish environment. an endless rough landscape of rocks with no life. So it just looked like fields, fields of rock. But I could make out the outline of a city on the horizon through the haze. I couldn't believe it. A full city out in the open on Venus. This was the real deal. As I watched him drive the ship to the city, I was self aware of myself, of my feelings, how good I felt, and how confident I felt. The haze thinned as we sped forward, yet orange yellow clouds drifted in between tall buildings. So there was like kind of a structures I could see, but then there was obscurity going on, and I couldn't make out the size of the city. So it was difficult to know just how big the city actually was. This is the best rendering I have of the city. This is my own drawing of it. And this is the version Thomas Hansen gratefully did, which was modeled after my own. So we landed on one of the several circular landing pads visible just outside the city. And it could have been one of these ones here. The door opened, and I followed him cautiously, asking, "Can we breathe this air? Can we breathe this air?" He said, "The air is normal." Stepping out, the platform was only 5 or 10 feet from the Venusian rocks. And at that point, I looked up at the orange yellow atmosphere and was like, wow. And now I want to describe clearly what I saw, all the real clear memories, get it absolutely crystal, just to get it on record, really. So first, the walkway and the outer city. This image, kindly drawn by Thomas Hansen, modeled after my own drawing, is my best interpretation, but it's not exact. I don't quite see it from this angle. All I know is on the walkway, there were other walkways, and some appeared to connect to the open structure we were heading to. Also, I can't actually recall the details of the outer city, like how it actually appeared, the boundaries where the city ended and the rock began, and really it wasn't a wall, but could it have been more fluid, spreading outwards? I don't really know. I didn't see it quite like that. I didn't get the feeling the city was built into the ground like our human cities are built right into the earth, but there was a sense the city itself hovered like a couple feet off the ground. And actually, Thomas tried to get that in the drawing. I could see the ground below, and there was something coming off of the rocks. Now, when it comes to the environment, this video here is the best example of what I saw coming off of the surface, coming off of the rocks in the environment. It's more than heat waves. And up close, it's almost steam like. This might be what it's like looking through high pressured gases. It was obvious I shouldn't be able to breathe the air, but I didn't ask for an explanation. As I walked towards the lower structure that had a large opening connecting the walkways, I was able to observe the buildings that were connected to it, and I saw them clearly. And they were gray, some with rows of small lights. Look at that, like that kind of idea with these rows of lights beaming out of them. Light was beaming out of them. And a lot of the light was yellow. None of them were uniform, but had mixed shapes: cones, domed tops, and tall curved buildings, permeated with smooth curves. Our human buildings are in contrast with hard edges, right? So now, knowing there is a fey, elf, gnome connection to these entities, I can't help but notice some of the buildings look like gnome hats. So aside from seeing it as a Venusian city, I also see it as a futuristic alien fey city. Yeah, so pretty wild. This here is the entrance. And before we enter, he says, "Do you want to see my place?" And I say, "Yes," enthusiastically. We entered into a large opening to the connecting lower structure, and notably, there was no atmosphere change. I could see far down into the lower structure, and there were large open courtyards, pathways, workstations, and places for gathering, all under huge glass ceilings. Different types of beings I could see: humanoids and tall grays and lanky aliens with large eyes on the side of their head, all wearing muted color jumpsuits or wearing white gowns. Where they were sitting and standing, right? So this is the idea that there's kind of like groups of them, and walking in groups, just going about their lives in a state of leisure and relaxation. Interestingly, no one seemed to notice me or care that a human from Earth was there. We walked past three. So right here, there was a table with three tall gray aliens sitting at the entrance. Kind of, they appear to be, relaxed and sitting. And this was a light walkway, like a transporter, and it had these consecutive rings on it, like these white circles on the balustrade. It ran the length of this connecting structure. It looked like it, and looked like it would take you far distances within the city. So presently, it reminds me of a moving walkway at an airport, except considerably faster. The humanoid stepped in first, so right here, and I followed. And it seemed to phase our bodies. So I could see the environment as we sped by, yet there was no sense of G force. And I believe other beings were using it simultaneously. So within seconds, I was gently stepping off the side of the light walkway in front of a metal elevator door. A sensation of life and intelligence permeated from the city itself, the same way the Gray's crafts are alive and intelligent, as the transporter knew exactly where we were going, even though I didn't see the humanoid program directions or say anything. So now we were waiting for a physical mechanical elevator. And it's kind of weird considering how many times I'd had experienced their transporters. The door to the elevator opened, and as we waited inside, I had a self reflective moment where I felt the pang of loneliness and isolation that I was experiencing as a traveler. I'm going to someone's home, right? It's kind of hitting my psyche. So, how nice the comfort and security of a home was, right? But I couldn't have that now. It was all sleeping bags, tents, and living out of a car. The doors opened directly into a living space. There were couches. So these here were couches in the center of the room and a large table close to a window. The view looked out into the Venusian landscape. The walls itself seemed made of an unearthly light gray material and were smooth. I could see the curvatures on the top of the ceiling and the curved, on the floor, from the wall to the floor. So it felt molded. The entire space felt molded. There was an area to my left that had a counter and cupboards. So right here, kind of resembling a kitchen, yet I didn't really see a sink or a tap, but it wasn't too unsimilar to an earth condo. A woman came around the corner here, and I could feel immediately that they were bonded with each other. I could feel the bond between them, the mother and son bond, in this telepathically sensitive environment. And she was wearing a black shawl over top of her shoulders and had brown black curly hair, and her jaw bones and her eye sockets were more defined than a human's. She was very excited and telepathically said, "Hello, welcome." And I replied, thank you. Not certain of customs and just grateful for the experience of seeing how they live. And so, yeah, I was just kind of overjoyed with energy at the time. When I looked out the window, witnessing the landscape and the mustard yellow atmosphere, I could see the landing pad and the craft that we had flew in the distance. So it was just a little bit off in the eye shot. The humanoid was excited to show me a device around the corner. So this was where I came in, and so over here, kind of in this kitchen area, was a circular electronic device standing a little over a foot high, sitting on the counter. It had a small metallic bullet like object in the center, emanating suspended by a web of electrical currents. He picked up a small piece of metal from the counter, so something there was like a bunch of material here, and he picks it up and placed it about 6 inches away, let it go, and it flew to the bullet, and all this energy sparked out. He was kind of giving me the impression of, see, cool, eh? But I had no idea what I was looking at. And there was a sense that I needed some other type of scientific knowledge. If this was something to do with energy or gravity, these were things that as a 20-year-old I'd never studied as a musician. So yeah, I felt like I was supposed to have some type of scientific knowledge to understand it. And I was just really too overwhelmed in the moment to learn. So he brushed off my kind of cluelessness, saying, "Your civilization will get here soon." And to this day, I still don't actually know what this moment was regarding, like what this device really is and what it's about. I've tried to do some research to seeing if I could find if there's any connection to it, and I came up with nothing. But I couldn't believe they lived here on Venus and that their home was not that different from a human condo on Earth. So once I was done looking around, it was time to go, and I said out loud in English to his mom, "It was nice meeting you." So I verbally say it out loud, And we had an interesting exchange in which she couldn't understand my human utterances, but smiled uncomfortably and responded in telepathy, goodbye, like goodbye, like that. When we are back in the elevator going down, there is this heart to heart moment in which the humanoid tries to uplift me, and it's very moving. He says, "You're going to do something great for your society. Keep up the good work. Humans need you. Humans need people like you to get the right job done." So, behind all of my excitement was a 20-year-old who was insecure, emotionally lost, and ungrounded about his life. I'm certain he felt this, so his pep talk was welcomed. But also, his phrasing had me realize for the first time for him, I wasn't some kid from a different planet, but a human representing our species. So I said, "Thank you, friend." And smiling, he touched his forehead with my own. So he leaned in, right? And we touched foreheads. And he says, "You'll be back here," like that. We walked out of the elevator to the light walkway when he said, "Go that way." So he's telepathically pointing. So he's got this feeling like as if you could use your hand, but not use your hand kind of idea and telepathically point. So he telepathically points and says, "Go that way." And I'm like, "So where am I going?" And I could feel he was about to leave. He says, "Follow the tube." So the idea of the city having this kind of large structure that was tubular like, right? And at that point, he's physically pointing to go the other direction. And then he steps on the light walkway. So he enters it and he was gone. And now I'm laughing to myself that I was unaccompanied in an alien city on an alien planet, right? So the insanity of it all. So I stepped into the light walkway, traveling longer than last time and going further away. It was as if I was in a speeding train as I watched the environment fly by me, witnessing more towers through the glass ceilings, implying the city was a lot larger than I assumed. Quickly, I was transported upwards. I could feel the sensation, or maybe the intelligence of the city kind of gave me the feelings, but I could feel the flying, and then we moved upwards really quickly, and I was immediately looking out into another space. I was in another tower looking at someone else's living space, and all the furniture was too small for a human when I realized this was the elder's place. So I stepped out from the circular transporter right into her living room, and she walked out from the left. So she comes out from this way, of an area that again kind of like resembles like a kitchen area. And she telepathically says, "Welcome, Jeff. Sit down." So she was wearing black coveralls that had wild, lightning, zigzagging holographic patterns with depth on the front. I spent some time on AI trying to get similar images. It was this type of pattern, though the coverall was black like this, yet it was tighter, and the hologram had a depth that made it look like you could reach inside of her chest. So I could feel her emanate that this was her relaxed clothing, right? Such an interesting and bizarre creature. So there was a common area with two dark green toned couches that were 90 degrees angles from each other, overlooking the Venusian landscape. So this here was the window. And next to them was an empty space with a single reclined chair in the center. So looking around, so I come in and I'm looking around, I'm feeling overwhelmed and excited. And I sat on the couch. So I sit over here. And the couch wasn't too tiny for me. The fabric was the similar fabric to the mattress that I experienced in the space station. She brings me a cup of water in a metal cup and told me that I wasn't able to drink what she was having. And she shows it to me, and it's the color of like tomato soup. And then that's it. She sits down on the other chair, on the other couch, and I'm over here, and we are quiet. And yeah, one of the additional things occurring at this moment was while I was in the elder's place, there was a feeling of, there was a permeating feeling from her of a protective mother, but creature like a protective mother hen. Yeah, it wasn't like mother, it wasn't human mother, but it's a creature mother. I don't even know. But so I kind of think of it as mother hen was the best way of framing that. So reflecting on my experience with the beings, I said, "We did it. We made a me. referring to the persona that had now become embodied. She said, "You did most of the work. I just guided you in the right directions. So what now? What do we do now? You live out your life like you were meant to. You'll meet people who you were meant to meet and be with people you are meant to be with. You'll have great friendships that will last a long time. You know my future?" Now, I understood that they knew I would leave Coquitlam, but she made it sound like she knew my entire future, people and all. And confidently, she says, "Yes, we know everything about you. You'll become a great man." Now, there's a lot of people who get annoyed by this line, but she does say this. I'll talk about my understanding of this in the reflection. So, in previous contact events with the beings, there was always something to do or focus on, but now they were giving me time to relax and reflect. In doing so, I got a little emotional, how amazing this entire experience had been with them. But then I wanted to take advantage of the moment and absorb where I was. I said, "This is where you live?" Still in amazement that she, an alien, lives on Venus and in a way not unsimilar to a human. I just expected something a lot weirder. I wanted to see if I could find anything interesting, so I got up to look around, and only to find the place was sparse with no pictures or no decorations. Still in amazement, I said, "This is how you live? You live like a human lives. You live in a place and a space. You have chairs and you." And then I was like, "Wait, what is this thing?" And that's when I really kind of zeroed in on it. I saw this reclining chair. It was next to the couches, and I noticed it had a band holding a rectangular screen that would be placed in front of the eyes of its occupant. She said, "That is our entertainment. Go ahead and sit in it. It will make sense to you." So I did. The chair was small, but I squeezed into it. Though I thought for certain I was going to break it, the screen turned on automatically as three-dimensional spirals and like spiral shapes and blocks projected out, affecting my mind like with uncomfortable sensations. And then this like one spiral like protrudes out and it kind of like moves further. I felt it penetrate the back of my head, so it really like goes into your brain and your head, and it made me want to throw up. I had this like repulsive feeling from it. So I spilled out of the chair and I said, I don't like that." And she said, "Yes, that's not made for you." I'm like, "That's your entertainment?" She said, "We are different types of beings. We are affected by different things in different ways than you are." It's like, okay, yeah, that made sense. Then the elder projected a feeling into the room that it was time to go. And I said, "Thank you. Thank you for giving me this experience." As I got emotional, believing it was the last time I would see them. Unemotional, she said, "Yes, you have to go back." I slowly made my way to the transporter and she walked with me. I turned around to absorb this moment one last time. And then I stepped into the transporter. She said, "We'll see you soon." I was fired down and already on the city's light walkway before I could even say, "What do you mean?" As I still did not understand what their involvement was in my life now that we were not working towards something. It was clear an intelligence was guiding me throughout the city, knowing where I was supposed to go. As I stepped out into a bustling area where I saw my humanoid friend. So I came out right there, and this is the humanoid friend here, and he's conversing with other humanoids. So I see him with a group of humanoids. Apparently, he was waiting for me. That's when I get an opportunity to glance around, and I saw I was on an upper level. Like this here is an upper level, overlooking a courtyard, which is this space here. And in front of me was a like kind of a winding walkway down. The ceiling was high with large windows, enabling me to see tall buildings outside. And small groups of aliens had gathered and were walking about. And at the bottom of the walkway, this walkway here is like right here was a tall, lanky alien on a hologram table, like a table. And there were holograms there, and stores or some type of like indentations were lining the environment. It kind of had a mall feel to it. This was a courtyard, but it's obviously like I don't believe e-commerce was occurring because nothing really resembled e-commerce. But maybe these were services of relaxation or something. I don't really know. The humanoid walked up and said, "It's time to go," and we immediately got back on the light walkway and headed back to the craft. I reflected that I thought this was going to be my last time with the elder, as I just had no idea what was in store. We get off the light walkway, and while we're walking to the craft on the landing pad, I said to him, I never learned your name. I never learned anybody's name for that matter. And he said, we don't have names, not the way you have names. Very interesting. When we made it outside, again, I was surprised I could breathe the air. It looked like the surface of the planet was in a chemical stew that I shouldn't be able to breathe. This time, he was in control as I sat on a chair in the craft and I watched him fly steadily through the Venusian atmosphere up to low orbit. And then the Earth was on the screen, first a dot, and very quickly it turned into a globe. And it was quite startling how fast the craft can move. We quickly flew past the tall space base, so we flew towards Earth, and now we again kind of more controlled fly past the space base from earlier on, and we fell at an angle into Earth's dark side. The light from the crescent moon was lighting up below, and I could see Hornby Island from above at night. So the craft, like, I don't really get it. Like, you have the impression the craft is going down like this, but I don't know that it was doing that. But we're looking at Hornby Island from above. And I had a feeling of, a feeling in my throat that I didn't want to go back to this world of confusion, but it is the way it was. Now, in the book, I write, he landed close to the tent and opened the door of the craft. We said goodbye to each other and I got out. My memory fades, and next I woke up to the dream I had of the faceless presence associated with the rising, saying out loud to myself, they were here. But I'm wrong. It's these extreme consciousness moments that I have to triple check. But now, having a firm grounding in the awareness occurring in my contact event, this is what I now know exactly occurs. So he does actually say goodbye, but I phase out. And the elder, my spirit twin, fully takes over, with her eyes in my mind. What took time for me to understand was that the list of flashbacks I provided in the beginning of this presentation are in my mind before it is phased out, like hoping I remember them. That's why the flashbacks come back so easily, because they're in the mind of the person whose mind is being sealed up. And I'm then floated from the craft as a spirit, as this spirit blob, unconscious, back to my body in the tent. It's very spiritual, it's calm and peaceful. And I'm floating back at nighttime. I'm certain that the consciousness of the craft is the one guiding or floating me back into my body. This body that was floating into my tent had purpose, but it was behind the purposelessness of my normal world. And I simply cannot contain what they did to me. It's very clear that what happened, being in the thinner dimensions in space and Venus, was all in a thinner part of my mind, while my human world is much more dense, even though I'm trying to live a spiritual life. Then, as my mind becomes denser, at the end, while floating back, with the elder in my mind, the intensity of the biological event comes back. And that's why I dream about her, and it is disturbing. The ogre dream is her, and the disturbia of her having overpowered me, like she is doing in the present moment. I wake up from the dream in my tent, and I say out loud, they were here.